Hi, everyone. Welcome to our reality capture education series. In today's session, we will be showing you some time-saving tips and tricks for laser scanning data collection. I'm Christine Grail with Leica Geosystems, part of Hexagon, and I will be the moderator for today's session. Our instructor today is Adam Westfall. Adam has more than 22 years of experience in surveying roles ranging from party chief and CAD technician to project manager, surveying director, reality capture field engineer, and business owner. As reality capture consultant for Leica Geosystems, Adam focuses on helping surveying and engineering firms achieve transformational innovation with laser scanning technology. Also on the line with us today is reality capture expert Seth Gulich, who will assist with answering questions. Our session today is live, and both Adam and Seth will be answering your questions as we go through the material. You can submit your questions by typing them in the questions box, which you should see on your screen. Because we're focusing on field software today, we will not be able to dive into the software in real time. The iPad just doesn't stream really well to the go-to platform. But if there is something you would like to explore that isn't shown in the session today, please do enter it in the questions box or in the exit survey at the conclusion of today's session, and we'll make sure that someone gets in touch with you. Now, just as a reminder, this is not intended to be a deep dive educational session. We do have opportunities for that outside of this webinar series. As a matter of fact, coming up in October, we have our LGS University in Tucson, Arizona. That is in person. That's going to be a fantastic event with dozens of sessions, including some on Field 360, I believe. So I do recommend that you take a look at that. It was at one point called HDS University, and now the scope has been broadened to include a lot more beyond just that laser scanning. So I do encourage you to check that out, and that is where you can get some fantastic training. For today's session, it's really just about those tips and tricks. We want to make you guys as productive as possible. And also for those of you who might not be familiar with the Leica workflows, we want to give you a taste of what that is like so that you can make some good informed decisions. Before we get started today, I do have a few quick polls I'd like to share just to get an idea of who is in our audience today. Let's go ahead and find out how you would describe your experience with laser scanning. You might just be getting started. Maybe you have some experience and you're still learning, or maybe you would consider yourself a superpower pro at this point. Go ahead and respond to that. It looks like we have a lot of folks on the line with us today who have some experience, but they are still learning, and you will learn a lot in today's session from Adam, I have no doubt. So I'm going to go ahead and close this poll out, share those results so you can see where you fall in the spectrum. And we have just one more quick poll before we get started, and that one is specific to Field 360, because of course we're talking about field workflows today, and we're curious to know how many in the audience are experienced with Field 360, what you think about Field 360. Go ahead and take a moment. Looks like we have a lot of people who love it and use it all the time, and that's fantastic. And yet here you are, you want to learn some more and learn how to be as productive as possible. Maybe there's a few who are still trying to figure out how to get the most use out of it. Let's go ahead and close this poll out, and I will share those results. Looks like it's a pretty even split between those top two choices, actually. So I'm going to go ahead and share those results out. And then I will hide that. And with that, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Adam. You should be able to see that on your screen in just a second here. Okay. All right, you can take it away when you're ready.
Okay. So, sure I'm sharing the correct screen.
I see it.
You see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, so thanks everyone taking time out of your busy day, especially most likely your lunch hour, depending on what time zone you're in. But take a look at some, like Christine said, some tips there for Field 360. I've been using Field 360 constantly for about 4 years now. Really loved watching the way it's evolved through different versions and releases of the app. And I don't know if you were like me, I believe it was when version 4.0 was released and you could close figures and make closed networks. I was very excited to try that out. But to jump into it today, the goal is tips and tricks and maybe some overviews of the things that tend to get a little overlooked because we're all just trying to be productive, jump into things and get scanning. But also, I tried to set this up in a way that you're going to see some things you probably know. Hopefully, you see some things you don't know. But one of the goals is to have this be bite-sized information, things that you can send to field technicians or scanner operators that if they're running into an issue, even if you know the answer, then you can say, hey, take a look at this, and say fast forward to minute 20, and it'll show you exactly what you're going through. So that's really the resource I want this to be today. And I hope there's some things in here you don't know. There should be, because I'm really good at finding all the little issues that something can have and working through them or around them, just because I can't leave well enough alone. I have to hit buttons. But so first of all, let's just jump through, take a look at what the menu layout looks like. And the way it's set up is you get this project grid and you can see the different project tiles, and you can push this grid and put them in a list view, which personally I really like the project icons to see what the different projects look like. And you can rearrange how they're displayed either by name, by date, by time. Personally, like I like the most recent one to be on the top left. So for me, the most recent was sample project. And you can create new connections under the menu button. This is where you add a new device. You can see all the different devices you previously connected to. And for me, that's quite a few. Being a Leica rep, I see a lot of different pieces of technology. And this is the cloud connections portion of the menu. You can log into your Reality Cloud Studio credentials so that you have the ability to upload straight into Reality Cloud Studio. And we'll take a look at this more in depth here in a little bit. But it's handy because if you ever log in through Safari or Chrome on the tablet, it should save those login credentials. And then you can just summon the stored credentials and log right into the app. You don't have to memorize the cryptic long password code. And the other thing is the import backup data, the next menu item. That's really cool. We'll take a look here in a minute about how to create that archive backup. But if you want to move a project, like say from tablet to tablet, person to person, that you can do it that way. This is the sync server. This is something people probably don't use a lot. And I like this as a backup approach to syncing and downloading your data. So if you ever have a damaged cable or you, like say for instance, you're using the BLK 360 G2, you really need to have a laptop that has a video card to download that correctly and true USB-C with power over USB-C. And if you don't have that, like not all field technicians have that. Some of them have an ultra lightweight laptop just for doing things like timesheets and uploading field notes and photos. You can use Sync Server, and the tablet acts as a server so that both the laptop that has Register 360 Plus on it and the scanner connect to the tablet. You put this information into Register 360 Plus. In the import frame, there's different options in the drop down. You select Field 360, and then you put in this IP address and port and test a connection, and it will show you the projects available to download. The only caveat with this method is you do not save local raw data when you download like this. It sucks the project directly into Register 360 Plus, but if the project comes in good, then honestly, like that, you could back up Register 360 Plus that before you start working with it, and that could be your raw data. But also, the field archive file is now you have download with Data Manager. With the RTC, you can pull out the flash drive and copy it over that way. But also with field archive file and with Sync Server, you have 3 different methods that you can get your data off so that hopefully you don't ever hit a brick wall and lose productivity. But also, keep moving on. Obviously, I wasn't syncing anything. This is just for demonstration. to create a project, you just hit this red plus button down here in the bottom center. And when you hit that button, it should pop up here in a second. It's the only downside to using videos is you're beholden to its timing. So Field 360 keeps a running tally of all the jobs you've created. Apparently, I created a lot of 1 and 2 sample jobs. I'm all the way up to 361. And you always got to get your email from your good buddy, Mr. Perkins, everybody knows and loves. So I just called this project Sample 2, and I love the photo button to use the thumbnail photo for your project. And here's a little tip that a lot of people might not know is this description field down at the bottom. If you notice, there's a magnifying glass here in this navigation menu. If you type any sort of keyword to help you, anything unique about a project, like a customer, an address, hey, this is the site near Kentucky Fried Chicken, then if you search KFC, all that comes up later. So if you have hundreds of projects on Field 360, that's just a nice way to do a quick recall. But you don't have to put anything not super professional looking in the name of the project to scan. So we talked about that importing the FAF, the field archive file. The way you do that is in this same menu. You pull up and you look at a project, and I believe this Iowa 2, this is one Be OK to Go scan. And before we jump much farther, I should point out, if you notice, some of these projects say LWPO and some do not. That stands for lightweight preview only. And that means the entire project does not reside on the iPad. In my particular instance, you probably already could tell I'm using an iPad. And obviously it works with Android also, or with iPhone or Android phones. But so this is, you see the little icon of the scanner that was used. This is RTC 360 icon. This is Be OK to Go icon. That's the only ones I'm seeing. There's some G2s on down. But if it says LWPO, this archive doesn't do a lot for you. You can change that LWPO from tablet to tablet, but if you have the full data on the machine, then you can export, and this can be your raw data. So there I just opened and took a look at the data, made sure that's what I want, and you just long press there on the project tile to make it selectable. Then these little circles become selectable, and you use this up arrow in the top right, and it'll export the backup data. The cool thing with this is if you have something like OneDrive or Dropbox on the tablet, which most companies these days seem to use OneDrive, if you're signed in, ready to go with your OneDrive, then you can save files, and I just hit desktop there. You can put this on any computer remotely. So as long as you've got good internet or good Wi-Fi after you've created the field archive file, you don't have to be connected to the scanner to create this because all the project is on the tablet. So some companies have been doing a thing like making a field crew's OneDrive login so that there's a field computer that when they log into that OneDrive and they export to the project raw data, it's populating on their company server from the tablet. Nobody has to go to a Starbucks to get on their Wi-Fi and download and Dropbox a project over. So next thing I want to talk about is creating links. And here's it's short URL. I shortened the URL to this paper that was published. It's not really a paper, it's a web page. And one of the ladies that actually is responsible for developing and writing Field 360, the app, coding the app, published this explanation of what the different link creation methods are and how they work. And I think they're pretty important to go over. They tend to all three work pretty well, but there's best practices for each and when to use them. So the three different ones are quick link, pre-align, or optimize. And if you're using something like the RTC 360 or the G2 that has Viz built in, see it's already populated where scan 2 is. And if I show you the scans just about finished, it's already started to sync the scan over. So scan 2 is synced in, and as soon as it does, the quick link button becomes available, and I just press quick link, and it makes a link from 1 to 2. And now I opened the link, I hit link and edit, And the reason I did that is just to show you, you don't have to do this. You can just quick link. You can scan 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And if you're doing a sequential scan sequence, like down a hallway, doing a floor plan of a building, then you can do 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. The only caveat is if I moved into this other room and did 3 and I actually wanted 4 to link to 2, then I would have to not do quick link. I would just hit link 3 to 2, 4 to 2. But I opened this so you could see that the 2 links, it does, quick link is not as heavy a calculation as optimize. And if you click this gear icon, there's a level of detail setting that if you're using a more capable tablet, something like an iPad Pro or a high-end Android, you can run level of detail high, and it will bring more of the data in for a preview and use more of that data for your cloud to cloud. But the quick link just does a closest neighbor calculation, and it really, that's all it kind of needs, because the viz is so accurate on its own usually that quick link, it's reliable, ready to go. The next approach that you can use is let's take a look here. This is a project with a bunch of links and scans already in it. So let's delete this link from 2 to 3, and I will move setup 2 away from the viz location. See, that's correct, and now it's incorrect. So mimic a scanner that does not have viz, something like the P series, which you can run with Field 360 if you haven't new enough firmware, or the BLK 360 G1. And if you see there, before I created the link, I actually checked the box. You hit the link, select the scans. I checked pre-align. Now I hit start alignment. If you have, as long as this initial estimate is not too far off, and honestly, it can be rotated, moved wrong. It doesn't matter. As long as there's enough scan overlap and common elements, your distance between the 2 scans isn't too far, pre-align will still find the right answer. Big caveat is if you're going up and down stairs, like half flights, there's a lot of similar answers in stairwells. And also, if you're going farther away between your scans, you're going to need to do a better job of like manually sort of giving it a guess before you hit pre-align, because pre-align, it fits together 3D features, and it's sort of like quick align, but it's got quick align and optimize built in, kind of. So it's a sum of all 3, and it's really only for, don't use this check, don't have this checked if you're using a scanner like the RTC or the G2 with Viz, because you're going to create more issues. Not that it creates a lot of issues, but like the 1 scan out of 100 that has an issue, you wouldn't have had that with Viz. So now the other method, so this is Viz, looks good, create link. The other method is the typical Viz solution. So scan 2 is just correct, it comes in correct, and you hit create link, and then you hit optimize. And before I hit optimize, I'm trying to show you a nice little feature that was added a little while ago. This is the slice analyzer tool. So it looks like an X-Acto knife blade. You just select this, and you can change the size of your slice up or down by pressing the plus button. And you see here, I press the plus button in a second, and this width indicator will grow. So there it got a little larger. Then you can also tap up here to navigate. Instead of top-down plan view, you can look at a side view or an orthogonal view, isometric. So not orthogonal. So there's a side, sort of a cross-section view. You can look at your ground plane and your wall plane. And before we move on, there's one thing I want to point out. A couple versions ago, it's been several versions ago, some people used to say, we're having problem with scans coming in tilted with the RTC. Almost 100% when that was happening, people were accidentally swiping this wheel on their way to hit create link, and it would take the blue scan and crank it diagonal. Nowadays, if you do that, and I meant to grab that and I forgot, but there's a warning comes up, says unexpected tilt between scans. And if you're running high tilt accuracy on the RTC, it doesn't allow you to adjust the tilt at all. But if you're running survey equipment with survey control, I recommend actually leaving high tilt accuracy off, because your tilt accuracy is going to be derived by your total station, or if your site's large enough, by your GNSS. But So that little slice analyzer tool is really nice to fine tune QA/QC your links. But sort of the beauty of Viz and Field 360 is it's usually rinse repeat, scan, create link, scan, create link, scan, create link. And another thing I wanted to show here is if you ever go to start alignment, oh, that's an later scan, but this is optimized. See how it's a little bit off? It optimized, it does that planar calculation and puts the scans together. Then you can create the link and move on. But so here's kind of a big takeaway, and this is one of the things I could really figure people could get some use out of showing the field crews, is if you ever go to optimize a link and the link jumps. So what that looks like, this is funny, as the software, as Field 360 has evolved different iterations, it's actually getting hard to even find scans to represent this because it either they're correct or it says, hey, I can't make the link. So if you look here, as I hit optimize, the scans jumped off of the Viz was actually more accurate than what the calculation came up with. And if you notice back up, I selected two scans to link that are much farther than recommended for this site, especially. This is a site this is all a retention pond with vegetation, and there were bushes blocking most of the view of this road. And if you see the blue in this scan and the blue in that scan when they're selected, there's not much planar overlap on this nice surface. So it's not going that far between two scans. It wasn't cloud to cloud friendly, especially because this is RTC, lightweight preview only. The tablet's only using about roughly, I don't know the exact number, but somewhere around 2% of the data. So nowhere near all the data that it has. And because, an iPad's not registered 360 plus on a beefy CAD computer. So when this jumps, I train scan techs and crews, just hit cancel. Don't create the link, just jump out, jump back in, create the link again. And instead of hitting optimize, just hit create link, because you're saying now just create a link from the Viz solution. And really the big thing I teach them is back up and put a scan in between here. So if this was scan 5 and scan 6 and they went a little too far, you see this a lot if it's like a distribution power line down through the woods and it's just a 4-wheeler path and nothing but vegetation. You can still cloud to cloud in there, say 2 centimeter accuracy overall, 2 to 3 centimeter, because you're going to see points down on the ground, but you have to tighten up your scan spacing. So if they need scan 7 to be out of sequence, back up and put in between 5 and 6. So it'd be 5, 7, 6, 8, to bring 8 a little closer next time. So just train your crews or your scan techs that if the scan jumps, you need an additional scan. That's really the point I try to drive home there. So another thing that was introduced, I think it was version 4, when the ability to close networks, was cleaning scans. This is pretty slick because if you have a field tech, like a lot of times when you're scanning, you're really trying to get a lot of scans quickly, like scan 1 through 100, you want to get them done a couple hours. But sometimes you're doing a project where you're waiting on people to get out of the way, you're scanning as you can. And the way you do this is you select a scan. Back up, it was kind of got ahead of me. You select a scan and then you hit 3D and you hit top down. So when you go into the 3D viewer, it triggers this clean button is now available. And it brings up a fence, and there's a couple different ways you can manipulate your fence. Sometimes I like to just manipulate the scan and say delete inside. So that was data that was through a glass window, so it's all refracted. If I was going to go in and scan inside that building later, I don't want inside and outside data to overlap for the same feature when some of it's not correct. So I can do some pretty intensive cleaning right here in Field 360, and this data is not deleted, it's masked. So when it's brought into the office, you won't see the area for setup 26 that's getting cleared off this scan. You can bring it back if you want it, but you'll have to clear it out again. And let's say you've got something real distance is just going to be noise when you bring it in the office. You can also go out and clean that out. But if you're doing a scan indoors and there's people moving and equipment moving pretty far away, and it's all just I got some kind of diseased email that popped up, but you can also use it and then delete outside, so that if you're scanning about every 25 feet anyway, you can get nothing but good clean data, but scan to scan to scan, because you're cleaning basically a distance constraint every time you take a scan. You can also clean scan a bundle. So instead of running through one scan and doing every little bit, so here's a shopping center, and this whole south edge of the building is glass, and you're seeing a lot of refraction of the inside walls. And one thing to keep in mind before I clean this, so this actually affects your cloud to cloud solution. In this instance, not so much. This was like a 1 millimeter solution because there was plenty of density on these sidewalks and the exterior buildings and the columns and adjacent buildings. And another thing to keep in mind with refracted data is anything that's that low intensity, Register 360 Plus does a good job of weighting the use of cloud to cloud data. If it's low intensity, it de-weights it for the solution. But keep in mind that if there's a scan on this wall refracted from this angle and then also from this angle, now you have two walls that are maybe 3-4 millimeters refracted different, but both a plane. And that might be important if you're in an area where you're fighting for good registration features. So in the back here, there's no glass in the back, but this was a gabion basket retaining wall with vegetation on top. If I had refraction back here, cleaning this would probably be a must. It's just a nice out here because it's just it's ghosted duplicate data, but it's the same thing. So I just select the bundle instead of individual scan, and now I'm just going to manipulate the grips of the clean window to get everything inside the building, and I'm going to say delete inside. So it also saves horsepower on your processing machine, because if it's unnecessary data, why bring it in and look at it? So that's cleaning a scan and cleaning a bundle. You can also, you don't have to clean from top down. You can clean from side view and from isometric view also, just like when you're checking a slice. So I believe it got another poll, and I accidentally jumped past it. Let's take a break real quick, Christine, and ask that other poll about how people are creating their links. Go back, if you will, to I had mentioned we went over the 3-way to create links: are quick link, pre-align, or optimize. So give that a second to get the results in, and I don't know if you need to take the presentation over to show the results. But
Looks like we've got a pretty even split between quick link and optimize. I'm going to go ahead and close that out. We've got most of the people voting here, so close that out, share the results.
Okay. So that's going to go in the discussion panel then. Which that makes sense, because that means it sounds like a lot of the people in attendance are using scanners that have Viz enabled. So quick link, you have to have Viz, and optimize, you're not having to manipulate the position between the scanners. So good answers. One other thing I wanted to bring up is geotagging, and I'm sure a lot of people, we probably should have done a poll about this too, because I was curious how, throw in the comments if you want, if you use geotags a lot. And one thing about geotagging is, I know everybody that does use geotagging, the big thing they like to use it for is additional augmentation photos. So power pole tags, valve tag numbers on valves on a gas and oil compressor site, property corners. Like if you see something, you're not out there probably doing boundary surveys with your scanner, but if you do see something, you can tag it later just to make sure it wasn't missed in a later data collection phase of the project. But I really like to drive home with scanning techs and field crews that geotagging is not just for photos. So, and you can do them in the office later. You can do them on the tablet later. The thing keep in mind is if you're adding geotags to the RTC, you need to be connected for it to write into the flash drive, or else it's only going on to the Field 360 project. But let's pick setup 4 here, and when you hit geotag, you can select different things. One of my favorite things to geotag is just a text note. And you can say, hey, the contractor, you can give it a name like monitor crack and asphalt, and I could put in the notes, the contractor on site, the engineer, the property owner, they really want the engineer later to watch this crack, or there's a drops tile leaking here, or the vertical difference down to the invert out of this manhole is minus 5.6 feet to an 18-inch RCP. All you can geotag all kinds of data in Field 360, and it is just a very secure way to move data into the office, because it's, if you see there towards the end of that little video clip, the data stays persistent in the 3D environment, and that's what the CAD tech sees in the office, or the registration tech when they're taking a look at the scan data. So it kind of puts the information right in your face, and I like that. And to back up, you don't have to just do text. You can also geotag a photo, like we mentioned, photos, videos. This file button, this can be any file on the tablet. Now, obviously, you want to keep size in consideration, but say it's a PDF of some plan sets that somebody's marked up, and it's got details for a column in an area, or a change, a field change that was made. You can tag a PDF file right to the point cloud, and the person in the office gets that PDF because you put it in Field 360. Voice notes. I mean, you could wax eloquent about how much you hate Yellow Jackets nests and tag that in the point cloud, because there's Yellow Jackets at the southwest corner of the building. And if you have an iPad Pro or an iPhone Pro, you can actually do things like, if it's a lift station or something, it's, the RTC has a half-meter scan too close cutoff, and most scanners have that distance standoff that they need to generate reliable point cloud. But the IR scanner, it's obviously no statement of accuracy is made, but if you just want a contextual informational, like under a desk in a interstitial space, a pump station, a tight closet, you can paint additional and then bring that cloud in and link it to an actual scan. So one of the things that was brought in when we had the ability to close out figures and make cross-network figures is the ability to optimize bundles. And this is an important feature if you're going to utilize some of the things we're going to talk about here in a minute. And so to optimize a bundle, you select the bundle. And there's a couple different ways to do that. You can tap the bundle and it becomes active. This scan only had one. But if you tap this button here without a bundle active, it will show you all the different bundles you have. Most people try to only have one bundle because you've got scans that are floating separate from each other if you have more than one. But after you select the bundle and select the bundles button, this flies out and you hit the little 3-button menu, and then you get all these different options. And there's some neat things in here now that you can export an E57 directly out. You can upload it to Reality Cloud Studio. But this optimized bundle, if you see the sort of the yield exclamation, it means this bundle is not optimized. It's got the links to do so. It's got enough redundant information. And optimize it's kind of like a coordinate pair only network least squares adjustment, which is really what a laser scanning registration is anyway. It's just a treatment of the errors in the links to distribute them in a way that minimizes the error between the redundant links. And when you optimize, it doesn't create. It's a very lightweight calculation. It just takes a second. But sometimes, and this is why I say I awaited that ability to link and close a figure for a long time, because I would scan a really big building and the scan would slowly fan. Like, it would be a large rectangular building, but it would have this gentle fan shape to it, even though it was a perfect rectangle. And after this came active, you could close that out and maybe even scan. We scanned cross corridor ties, and when you'd optimize, now it's a perfect rectangle. It looks the way it should look. And you can also move and rotate bundles, and this is a big tip for anybody that's using a P series or a G1. So if you've noticed, and I'm sure you've noticed, if you do 100 scans with the P series and you don't move them or link them, they all come in right on top of each other. Right at 0, 0. And if you look at this grid background, these red lines, that indicates 0 and 0 for the datum of the scanner. And So if you select this bundle, the steering wheel comes active and the manipulation grip. So here I select the bundle and see these arrows and the tilt wheel. I can move it over here off of the origin 0, 0. And if I was using a P series and I'd say I was going to estimate now, I was going to scan in a line coming off 17, and I'm estimating my next scan is going to pop in here and I'm going to go that way. So I would just keep, when 18 popped in, I would move it to here and I'd just keep moving this bundle to the west. That way, scan 0, 0 would kind of come in where I want it to be. And that's sort of a backhanded way of recreating Viz. So the P series, still a great scanner, doesn't have Viz. The G1, great scanner, doesn't have Viz. But you can make the scans a little more manageable in Field 360 without Viz if you adopt this technique. It's real easy if you're scanning indoors, going down a corridor, or outside, going around a block of the city, where you know which direction you're going to be going based on the last scans you link. And I was think of yes, you have that entire bundle that you're moving, but I'm going to show you something here towards the end that helps with that too. So quick plan, throw in the chat if you're using quick plan. This is something I'd say a lot of maybe traditional survey companies aren't using, but it's very BIM oriented and very asset management oriented. So this was released. It's this little button up here on the top right of the scanner, and it's an additional entitlement that you need to run inside of Field 360 to activate this. And the reason for that is it's very, very powerful. So if you have a scan like the shopping center that I did, you can you want to optimize it first. That way your scans are nice and adjusted. And then you select quick plan and it'll give you this arrow from the left, and you swipe over the area that you want to create a quick plan for. And now it brings it into the data slicer, and you want to run a slice up and down so that you're looking at just the walls of the building you want to make a quick plan for. So right about there's a good slice, none of the sidewalk, no data obfuscating what we want to do. And if you look at the bottom now, it says swipe along point cloud to extract a wall. So I swipe that bottom wall, now the east wall, and it projects the two together. Do the north wall, creates that projected corner. The west wall, it creates a closed shape. And you save the room. It doesn't let you save it because it's not yet 3D. So this is a shopping center named Taste Center. And if you hit ceiling height says not measured, I'm going to hit measure here. Now, if you're indoors, you don't have to point towards the bottom corner, top corner. You just point towards the plane of the floor and the plane of the ceiling, roughly above and below each other, and it calculates that vertical separation. But here it says now navigate the ceiling and tap the screen. So I'm showing the top corner, save. So I just created a 3D model of this building. And you can tap on it and go in to add doors and windows into this model later. And it's really, it works better if you're scanning indoors. You can definitely do it outdoors also, but you can take this building model in Field 360 and start modeling floor plan features that you can publish out to a different platform later. Next thing is we mentioned upload to RCS, and this is another thing that makes that optimized bundle kind of critical. So if you're going to push data out as a sort of a finished product or a discussion piece, you want to make sure you've got good, adjusted, well managed data. So here's a BLK to go scan that I looked at. It's just one scan, and same thing. You hit your three dots under your bundle and you say upload to Reality Cloud Studio. And where we entered our credentials earlier, it should just automatically push it up there. When I do this, keep in mind that you can even rename your scan. Instead of scan 2, you can call it like office or conference room. And you can, when you upload it, you can create a new folder, a new project folder, and upload it. So things aren't just called scan 1, bundle 1. They can be a little more project looking, and you can publish this out. Open your Reality Cloud Studio and send this to people. So within a matter of minutes, you can scan a site, push something up to somebody to look at and collaborate on. It publishes an E57 right out of Field 360. And I canceled this because I didn't upload it to Reality Cloud Studio. So that last tip about the P series, sort of pseudo viz workflow, or anybody that's doing scanning in a facility with multiple floors, um, scans in building with multiple floors, if you get like scan 50s right on top of scan 5, or vice versa, if it's 6 floors, maybe you've got 6 scans on top of each other. This eyeball button up here is, it controls how many scans are visible. So if it's just eyeball, that means show them all, but you can only show the last 3 scans, the last 5 scans, the last 7 scans. That's very helpful because it lowers, if you've ever done, like if you've ever used a lower end tablet, they can get a little crashy when they get up, say 75, 50 scans. Um, you can nurse a few more scans in that same Field 360 project if you start limiting how many scans it's showing you, but also you don't have those scans on top of each other. And if you're trying to do that pseudo P40 viz workflow, then you're only looking at the last few scans. So that's pretty much all. I budgeted some time for questions. Seth, Christine, anybody have any hard hitting questions that we feel we should try to address?
Hey, Adam, there was one question that I thought you may know the answer to because I'm not 100% certain. So when cleaning data in Field 360, is it only the visible points or does it include the cloud-to-cloud points when you bring it into Register 360?
It's both, and then you have to repopulate them if you want them to come back. So cleaning in Field 360 is cut to the end, and it's getting rid of visual and cloud-to-cloud points. But it's not deleting them; they're still in the database and can be resummoned in the office. So.
Yeah, Seth has done a really great job of keeping up with the questions. I think he's just about caught up with
I hear him
all
typing.
of them.
Yeah, I'm adding it in here to answer it there so we have it answered.
If there's anything you want to see a live demonstration of, as Christine said at the top of the hour, the web app of GoToMeeting was a little unpredictable, and we didn't want to have any unnecessary issues, so that's why everything's pre-recorded. But there's no hesitation to walk anybody through or show them this one-on-one if they need that.
Yeah, I just want to mention while we've got a few extra minutes here, and we do have both Adam and Seth on the line. So if anyone here has some questions for these experts, whether it's about, how to set up your site or how to capture a scan or even something just basic, please feel free to ask and we'll try to get those taken care of. I did want to let you know also that I have shared a link to that LGS University. Again, the link is hdsusuniversity.com because that is coming from that HDS University. It's evolving and growing into LGS University this year, and that is happening in October. So you can follow the link and learn more and sign up there. And we are getting some great questions coming in right now. So fabulous. We've got some engaged people on the line here. Let's see. And I wanted to clarify too, because there was Adam made several references to the G1, and I just want to make sure that anyone who's on the line with us today who's not familiar with that scanner, he's referring to the BLK360, that first generation BLK360 laser scanner. We call it the G1. So just for anyone who wasn't sure what that was. Let's see, is it possible to, yeah?
I was just going to throw out this little teaser. I don't know specifics, so I can't say, but we've been told there's some exciting things slated to be added to Field 360 in the near future. So just keep a lookout for future releases. And it's really nice too. It's something that's app driven like Field 360 is. You can just hit update on your tablet and you've got the new version.
Okay, very cool. So we do have some questions here. One, is it possible to adjust GPS XYZ state plane coordinates on Cyclone Field 360?
Not currently.
Okay.
So the operation, when I was mentioning that 00 line, everything in the Field 360 operational space on the tablet is sort of datum agnostic. It's just scan 1 is 000 if you don't move it off those red lines. And that's not to say that data is persistent. You marry it to the survey control in the office and move it over to that, or the UTC, what is that? I'm drawing a blank. The UTM or the NAT 83 GNSS reading from the sensor if it's an RTC. But yeah, it's everything's sort of relational. So scan 1, 2, 3, you have the links, and you have a spatial relationship between those that you create with the links, but you can move them, spin them on the scanner. There's no adding control or fixing things to a datum on the tablet.
Here's a question about sphere targets. We have someone who was using another brand of scanner and needed sphere targets, and now they're saying that after switching to Leica, they barely use them. Is there still a use for sphere targets in the Leica ecosystem?
Yeah, so we have some compelling internal data that suggests that spheres are not as accurate or reliable as black and white targets. And the Leica black and white targets are, and that's actually, if you see over my shoulder, that's a adhesive black and white target. It's not a Leica target. And I used that I did my own testing and used it at my own peril, because Leica targets they have a controlled albedo, absorption and reflection for the dark area and the light area. And that's what we code our software to. Spheres, a laser scanner emits, the laser is actually a very narrow cone, and it's not zero at the emitter. It has a certain beam radius even at the emitter. And when you sweep across a sphere, you're projecting, if you cut a cone on a plane, it's now an ellipse. And if you project an ellipse across a sphere, you're getting an average return that is never spherical. It's a flattened sphere. And the algorithm, you can control that somewhat, but it's just not as predictably reliable as a black and white target. Now, that said, a lot of customers, Leica doesn't even sell spherical targets. A lot of customers still use spheres with a great deal of success and automation, and that's because Register 360 still supports finding and populating spheres in Register 360 Plus. And if you auto-find spheres and leave your radius blank, it'll find them all. But if you're only using, say, 500 millimeter spheres, you type in 500, it'll only find 500 millimeter spheres. The cool thing with Register 360 Plus when using spheres is you can, like, say you're doing scans every 100 feet, and you have spheres, you need a minimum of 3, though, in Register 360 Plus. You have sphere triplets between each scan. Older software, even our previous versions of Core, when you do that, you get somewhat similar configurations of spheres between scans 2 and 3, as well as scans 7 and 8. They just tend to be close enough to garble up the automation of the software. Other software would try to take all the spheres and jam them together, even though they're not the same. Field 360, where you even if you don't use the cloud links, you can make the cloud links on the tablet, let it auto-populate the spheres, then turn off the links and tell it to only adjust with the spheres, and now you have a sphere-controlled only scan much more quickly than any other way previous, even though Field 360 doesn't even tag spheres, because you don't need to tag them. It can just automatically find them, given that they're spaced correctly and have enough scan densities. Hopefully that answers your question. I've used spheres quite a bit in the past, and they're handy because you don't have to turn them and tilt them. But the truth is, if you're indoors, cloud to cloud got a bad rap. Kind of like, I always likened it to the 2-point resection that we were all forbidden to use 20 years ago. And that's because 2-point resections were fraught with peril, depending on what data collection platform you were using. Resection is actually what, or as Leica sometimes calls it, FreeStation. I believe in Captivate it's resection. It's more accurate than setting up on a point, especially if you're using a 2 or 3 point, a 3-point resection with good geometry. But in the old days of cloud to cloud, if you were scanning, say, this room's, I think it's a perfect square. There's 4 solutions for how those scans spin. So cloud to cloud was kind of scary. And it had to do a brute force calculation because it didn't know this plane, that plane. It would fit one plane on this wall, one plane on the floor, one plane on the ceiling. with the advent of Viz or the RTC 360, that allowed some finesse to come into the cloud-to-cloud solution, so that when you move a scan, the one that I showed with the quick link, it already knew where the scan was. The IMU on the RTC 360 alone is 1 in 100 accurate. So if I pick it up and move it 10 feet, it knows within a tenth where it is. So what that allowed us to do was allow a lot more elegance into the cloud-to-cloud routine, so that wall, it's not theoretically perfect anymore. Now there's 100 different planes. Each panel on this door might be 2 planes, might be 3 planes. This one's a little bent out. And so if you're indoors, that the plane to plane is just as strong as spheres. And I've done some QA/QC analysis with a customer where and hopefully we're thinking if and how we might publish it, but we did controlled scans and we did cloud to cloud, and there's some pretty compelling results that came from the two. Very long-winded answer about spheres, but that spheres are good, but they can be relegated to usually not necessary with Viz.
All right, good to know. You guys obviously know your stuff. While we still have everyone on the line, I think we're getting close to the end here, but while we still have most of the audience here, I just want to mention that our next reality capture education session is actually going to be with some of our Leica Geosystems reality capture trainers. We're going to do an Ask the Expert session, and we would like to hear from you in our audience what you would like to have them address. So as you do exit in just a little bit today, there should be a survey that pops up on your screen. One of those questions is going to be, what question do you have for our experts for the Ask the Expert session? And we would love to know. Basically, we'll be sifting through those, trying to find, are there any common questions that are coming up, and then we'll choose from those to show you some tips and tricks. And we will also be taking some questions live on the line, because I love all the questions that we're getting here right now. Seth, are you seeing anything that we should try to address in the next few minutes here before we go ahead and close out?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions coming in. I'm typing like a madman over here. There's some good ones.
Which ones are you finding interesting? Is there anything that you want to tackle?
So there's some good ones. Somebody asked about tips on using the Viz on a G2. They tend to keep it off because they're struggling with it. I will say usually that's very dependent. The visual cameras on it are on one side of it and not the other half. So try to keep that away from you and be mindful of how you're walking with it. Let's see. There's probably some other ones I've probably answered, but
the other thing with the G2 is as the battery goes dead, you get about 45 minutes on your battery, and towards that last 10%, the Viz is pulling quite a bit of electricity. So you can eke more scans out of it if you turn Viz off towards the end, but use pre-align. But no, it's probably what Seth said. If you're covering those cameras, the Viz, the camera component is a critical component of the IMU because it uses one to check the other. And if it looks like one side of the scanner is not moving and the IMU says it is moving, then that's a little hard for it.
Yeah, there was also one question somebody asked about when they're scanning on a lot of different levels, like doing floors, how you would recommend kind of keeping that organized. I mentioned possibly maybe keeping separate bundles for the different floors and toggling them on and off in the one side menu. That had quite a few follow-up questions with people asking me how you do that. I know it's a little hard for us to show anything on the go-to webinar with streaming an iPad to it, but there is a menu on the right side of your tablet screen, and the top button there is for bundles, and you can toggle them on and off there, or even rename them so you can actually get your data pretty organized.
For me, that depends on the size of the floor of the building. So if it's 100 scans on a floor, I'd probably make separate Field 360 projects per floor. What Seth said, different bundles is good. And then what you might want to do is, like, if scan 10 pops out of the stairs on floor 2, make that link. That way it positions scan 10 and 11. And then you could delete that link and it doesn't move anything. Then you could have 2 bundles. And then when you're finished and moving on to scan 3, then you can go back to 10 and 9, recreate that link, break the link between 2 and 3. floors 2 and 3. That's different ways to do that. But also keep in mind, you can one of the last tips I showed about limiting how many scans you see. You can also just leave them all in one bundle, one project, and just only show me the last 5 scans. Keep in mind that if you tap the bundle and then go into 3D view, you can turn that on its side so that if scan 100 is on floor 100, it's not, even though it's over top of scan 1, you can turn it so that you see it spatially where it is.
Yeah, that's a good way about it. We still
Here's a
have them
good
actually
question.
rolling in pretty steadily.
Yeah, we have someone who wanted to know recommended specs for a tablet using Field 360. I mean, does it have to be an iPad? Does it have to be a latest generation iPad? What would you recommend there?
There's benefits to going with iPad or Android. The biggest benefit with iPad is sort of predictability in the operation of the app, because coding for iOS is while a little more constrained, it's a little more predictable. If you can swing it, grab an iPad Pro. That seems to be the most trouble-free. I have a customer that has a high-end Android, and it's really good for some things. But of all the weirdness, like Viz just wouldn't track it. It worked, everything worked perfectly, but it would not show the scanner pinging through the environment, and we could not figure out why. And the only thing I could chalk it up to is because it was Android, but it was running I'll just tell you, it was a Samsung running a Samsung skin, and I think that skin was interfering somehow. It wasn't just pure Android. No, I mean when the RTC originally launched, it was linked with the Google Pixel C tablet because it was the most horsepower at the time, and so the power of the tablet tends to be important, but not the only virtue.
What would you say about tablet space? Somebody asked about that.
That depends on your projects. So if you're doing food processing plants doing 2,000 scans, then big. If you're doing Alta surveys, 40, 50 scans as a project, you could get by with an iPad mini. Especially so with the RTC, it's only bringing over. It also depends on what scanner you're using. So if you're using a G2, bringing it all over, because I have customers that buy multiple G2s, send one out or two, run them simultaneously with 2 tablets, and instead of ever downloading them, they're sending field archive files via OneDrive. And when they get that Roger from the office that it's imported, they delete it from the tablet and the scanner and keep going. And that's actually maybe something I could have shown you, but in Field 360, that menu, the device manager, you can actually delete scans off the scanning device, like the G2. And if you do that, you also should probably delete it off the corresponding. Another thing, a way of importing, exporting field archives, if it's the RTC, you don't even really need to do that, because if you throw your tablet off a bridge accidentally and buy a new one, everything that's on that hard drive mirrored inside that little flash drive is just going to populate back up on Field 360 because it's all in there.
Nice.
Takes it a while to sync. Go ahead, sorry.
We have someone who's using a BLK360 G1. When they import from Field 360, they say, I uncheck the pre-aligned targets cloud checkboxes because I assume it is registered on the tablet in Field 360. Is that the correct workflow?
Yeah, if you're creating a complete pre-registration in Field 360, and honestly, it's almost not even a pre-registration anymore, it's just a registration. That top right panel of Register 360 Plus, everything gets turned off. The only thing that you need to turn on is the panel below, bring in photos if you use photos with some scans.
All right, a couple more questions here and then we will wrap it up. Can you merge 2 separate projects together in Register 360? I know we're talking about Field 360 here, but what about Reg 360?
Yeah, you just drag them both in, import them at the same time. So yes, you can import 2 FAF files if you archived Register 360 Plus, but if you're using the G2 or the RTC, you actually usually don't import from Field 360. Field 360 is sort of a remote desktop. is kind of a neat way to think about it. So as I just mentioned, everything you do in Field 360 is being written over to the scanner. So when you pull the flash drive out and put that in your laptop and drag the raw data folder, everything you did in Field 360 is coming in. If you have multiple Field 360s, you have more than one raw data folder, and you just drag them both in. So that's pretty much how you handle that.
Okay. Seth, is there anything else that we should address before we wrap up?
So let's see here. So a couple more are coming in. So a lot of people have been asking about using, I do want to add, Adam, a lot of people are asking about using multiple scanners in the same Field 360 project, which unfortunately you can't do as of right now. That, who knows, that could always change down the line. So you would have to do those separately. And as you mentioned, you could still import them into the same Register 360 project. As you said, just think of it as kind of like your remote into the scanner, and you're working with the data from that scanner and that project. And then another person did ask about the update GPS function on the RTC 360. I know that's not really something we cover on here, but it's kind of just like a rough ballpark. Sometimes it could be kind of close, sometimes it's pretty far away. It's just really to help you get you like a Google map, Google Earth quality closeness. I wouldn't rely on it for state plane coordinates.
It's WAS quality, and yeah, WAS, it's usually 1 meter precision, but its accuracy is suspect. It's usually better than 10 feet. The cool thing about it, though, is Viz is pretty accurate, and it keeps the Viz error from growing if you're doing something like a 1 mile long scan, to where you've got all those, let's say, 2 millimeter links, and also you've got, even if you're not making links, your scans are just going to be pretty close to about 1 meter. That's something to keep in mind. If you're running in Field 360, if you're making links, you can dial that search radius down on Register 360 Plus, which brings your, say, 3/10, 2/10, which decreases your import time. That's one of the big things about Field 360 is it speeds up import and office in. You can create a project, not use Field 360, and just let the GNSS position the scans, but then you need to float your search radius out to like 4 or 5 feet and maybe up your iterations. And doing that, sometimes some projects, your import time can go way up on Register 360 Plus.
All right, awesome. That does bring us to the end of our time today. Adam, thank you so much. Seth, thank you for all of your help addressing the questions today. It's been a fantastic session. Again, as you exit the webinar, do fill out that survey that should pop up on your screen. Let us know what you'd like to see in upcoming sessions, as well as in our Ask the Expert session. We appreciate your time and hope that you found this to be a valuable experience. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.